Something I noticed over the weekend, Oregon might have the best quarterback room in all of college football. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show. I appreciate everybody out there. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Lots coming up on today's show as Oregon going after a couple of transfers. We'll touch on that. But Oregon, I think, has the best college quarterback room in the country. And Ohio State is the other team that can contend for this particular crown. But Austin Novosad looked awesome on Saturday. There is no other way to put it. Ohio State has something that much more closely resembles a quarterback battle between, well, that depends on who you ask. Will Howard, the Kansas State transfer, he's certainly in the room, but I take Dillon Gabriel over him if he does end up being the starter, which I suspect he will. And then you go to the backups, and Dante Moore's got real starting experience. Devin Brown has, a little starting experience. I know he played in the Cotton Bowl last year to Missouri and unfortunately got hurt, but I think I'm taking Dante Moore in that respect. And Austin Novosad just looked like a starter. I mean, he looked like a starting caliber quarterback. And does he have that sort of experience? No, maybe he doesn't have enough yet, but I tell you what, that's a guy who looked poised in the pocket. He moves pretty well. He's got a lively arm. He's built his body up. Remember when he came in as a true freshman last year in the spring game and he went out? I mean, he was a twig. He was itty bitty. He doesn't look that way anymore. And I feel like he even cleaned up his motion a little bit. It looks tighter with a quicker release. And that's Oregon's third string quarterback. So you have the best quarterback in the Big Ten in Dillon Gabriel, who, as I talked about on yesterday's show, is more than good enough to lead Oregon to a Big Ten championship this year. You have Dante Moore, who is the number one quarterback in his class. And then you have Austin Novosad, who is also a highly rated guy and looks fantastic. And Ohio State, they're a little bit unique. And look, you can argue this any way that you want because Ohio State goes 5 quarterbacks deep. And, we saw the athleticism from Luke Moga. We didn't see a whole lot else. He had a couple nice moments throwing the football, but didn't do necessarily a ton. But I just look at the way that Oregon's quarterbacks performed, and Duck fans have to feel just fantastic about what the future quarterback is looking like here. Because Gabriel's in his last year of eligibility, so he's done after 2024. But then going into next season, it feels, at least right now, based on the information that we have from the outside looking in, that you could have a real battle between Dante Moore and Austin Novosad, which is not that Moore doesn't have immense potential and a little bit more arm talent and a better motion, which I think he does, but Novosad looks so good. I was thoroughly impressed. I was so thoroughly impressed with the way that he played, the throws that he made, the accuracy, the poise. Now he still had a couple throws where you went, okay, a little more experience, you don't make that particular throw. He had an inside slant on an RPO that probably should have been handed off. Tyler Turner actually played it very well. He kind of faked that he was coming down in the RPO, so Novosad thought there was a void behind, and then Turner kind of sagged off, jumped up in the air, and swatted the ball down. The interception that he threw, bad decision. Learn to throw the football away. That can come in due time. But if you question this notion that I'm about to propose and kind of just hinted at, that there will be a legitimate, open, and competitive quarterback battle for Oregon going into 2025, just ask yourself this question. What did Dante Moore show on Saturday, and I thought he did some nice things, that Austin Novosad didn't? Well, Novosad threw a bad interception. I've seen Dante Moore throw bad interceptions. He did it routinely last year. as UCLA's starting quarterback. So he's got plenty of room to grow. I certainly, still like Dante Moore's upside. And, one of the things that I was watching with him going into the spring game was, well, how does he look in the pocket? Does he look comfortable? Is he a little bit more, settled? And I didn't think that he was asked to do a ton, but overall in those facets, I thought he did quite well. And, the other thing is that fake touchdown run at the end by Dante Moore where, he would have been tackled a couple times. I think that's the most fun I've ever seen him have publicly on a football field. Did I watch every snap of UCLA's season last year? No. But he just looked comfortable. He just looked happy to be there, happy to be a Duck. And I think that cannot go overlooked when you have a tough situation like what he went through at UCLA when they were, kind of in a rebuild or reset year, transition wise at quarterback anyway. And he got kind of thrown into the fire and he wasn't ready for that moment. And, he clearly wanted a different situation. Looked like he was having a lot of fun. He came out and he was celebrating with Jackson Powers Johnson afterwards. I thought it was really, really fantastic. So, yeah, I think Oregon's got a real case to have the best quarterback room in college football because I feel good. And then in 2025, remember, Achilles Smith Jr. will come in as a true freshman. I mean, I don't think Oregon needs to add a transfer in the offseason. I think whoever wins the battle between Novosad or Dante Moore, man, I could see either of those guys working 100%. So, am I crazy? I don't know. Let me know in the YouTube comments. Some people always think I am, but hey, comments are comments. Another takeaway I had from Saturday, and if you have questions on anything, too close to my bedtime when I'm recording the show, I guess. Drop in the YouTube comments or X, or if you want priority access and other perks, go join the flock over at Subtext. That link in the description below, wherever you listen to or watch this show. I had a take going into spring that I wasn't sure Jordan James would be running back one or RB1, as they say. I think Jordan James is probably RB1. And my thinking was that last year, we saw Jordan James have an excellent season as Bucky Irving's number 2. And going into that year, after a spring camp and a fall camp, the coaching staff looked at Noah Whittington and said, yep, we think Whittington's better, and he was the number 2 back. And I think Whittington's really good. Jordan James seems to just keep on getting better. He delivered a blow that might have given Kobe Savage a concussion. I think the run he had, the 35-yarder, kind of early in the game, Dante Moore handed it off to him. He just kind of sifted through the defense, the patience. Yogi Roth was doing a great job talking about the vision he put on display, and then his acceleration. He's got the pass catching element too. Like I have not forgotten how good Noah Whittington is or what he was when fully healthy for the Ducks. But it's hard to know because Whittington is not healthy right now. But that might even be factoring into it even more because James is getting all the first team running back carries and he looks awesome. I mean, he just looks flat out awesome. And I would be surprised if one of those guys, whoever the lead running back is, if it doesn't end up being Jordan James, if he doesn't push for a 1,000-yard season. I mean, you got acceleration. He's got, a decent amount, not as much as Whittington, I don't think, of, kind of agility or side-to-side wiggle, but the power, the tenacity, ferociousness, and other good vocab words with which he runs. I think that guy as RB1 is a really good situation to be in. And the good news for the Ducks is I thought Jay Harris looked awesome too. And if one of those guys goes down, I feel good about Oregon's running back room. I think Jaden Lamar is solid, and I think Jay Harris put a lot on display on Saturday, but Jordan James looks really good. That guy can be a first or second team all-conference running back if he's given the lead duties, and if it's more of a split, guess what? That just means guys are fresher and healthier throughout the course of the year. Still plenty more to get to. Is Oregon going to have a receiver hit the transfer portal? Well, it's possible. Is it possible you haven't heard about Game Time yet? Well, if it's your first time listening to or watching the show, then perhaps it is, but now you have an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat so you know what to expect when you arrive, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time just takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60% buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you want. They have got it. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. So it's playoff time in the NBA and in the NHL if you're a hockey fan. Baseball's in full swing. My Mariners won in walk-off fashion last night, so I'm in a great mood taping this show. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Yeah, I paused there because that's as good as it gets. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and our official sportsbook sponsor here at the Locked On Network. Alrighty, tons to get to. Mailbag, as I said, always open. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, subtext, always to get into the bag. This from William. Mailbag question. First off, love the channel, but I've been getting the feeling Gary Bryant might enter the portal. Everyone has been viewing Tez, Stewart, and Holden as the main guys, and according to reports, Dickey and Casper have grown. I was wondering if you felt like that may play a factor in Gary staying or not. So, I've mentioned him before here on the show. And look, as this show is airing, the transfer portal closes sometime today, Tuesday, April 30th. So if he is going into the transfer portal, then it's going to happen today. You can exit the portal to your new school at any time, but you can only enter the portal in this specific window. Now, I'll get back to Bryant in just a sec, but Peyton Woodyard is a safety who Oregon was after coming out of high school in 2024. He's transferring from Alabama. He has a no contact tag. Don't know if the Ducks would go after a guy like that. Might talk about him more on tomorrow's show. And then Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle for Michigan State. I have heard that Oregon is still very much interested in getting him out of the transfer portal. So back to Gary Bryant here. Those are just a couple of transfer tidbits. I don't think at this point Bryant is going to transfer. I feel like he could. I think the logic that guys use to enter the transfer portal, whether you're leaving Oregon or any school, is I feel like I can play more or maximize my talents more elsewhere. And I think that's 100% true for Gary Bryant. He's a talented guy. He's a talented recruit coming out of high school. He's a 4-star transfer according to 24/7 Sports, and he's a good player. He's got some yak ability. He can line up inside or outside. He, can return kicks. He hasn't been great at that with the Ducks so far. But, Jurion Dickey got hurt in the spring game. We don't know the extent of that injury right now. I think Kyler Casper looks really good. I've been a fan of his since he was recruited to Oregon and enrolled early in 2022. This is his third season with the program now, and I wonder how deep that receiver room can really be for the Ducks with Casper, a little bit more experience and Dickey a little bit more experience. And then I thought some of the freshmen wideouts looked good as well. But certainly Gary Bryant Jr. is better. He has more talent than being a number 4 receiver. He could be a number 2 on a solid receiving core or a 3 on a really good one. He happens to be in what could be the best receiving core in all of college football. So he's the 4th guy. Now you're one injury away from suddenly being the number 3 guy because he plays both inside and out, though I think he's, most well suited to work from the slot, but they've moved him around and he's got that positional versatility. So I don't expect him at this point to enter the portal. I think he would have done it by now. Maybe he pulls a Montana Lamonius Craig, who at Colorado last year exploded in the spring game, and then used that to kind of have some film to go in the transfer portal and found his way down to Arizona. That ended up being the right move in terms of being a part of a winning team in 2023. But I'm definitely going to be monitoring what sort of portal action takes place on Tuesday, because it's the last day for guys to enter. So if they don't enter sometime on Tuesday or before the deadline, then they're not transferring out. You can't, you're not allowed to put your name. I suppose you could announce your intention to, but you wouldn't actually be able to go through the process and then, find another team. So we'll know today. I would lean towards no, just because it's so late in the process, and I don't know what exactly he'd be waiting for. I think if he wanted to go elsewhere, he'd be able to field offers, and teams, can always use receivers. But clearly, I think he wants to stick it out with Oregon. He likes his role, and he's got a place on the depth chart that has to be pretty solidified. Like, I know that Dickey has got just immense potential. The routes that he did run on Saturday at the spring game, man, that dude is crazy talented and explosive. And I think Kyler Casper is just a body type that you can't teach. He's 6'6". He makes contested catches, runs well, and is a really physical presence. I do wonder on Kyler Casper if he could play tight end. I'm just throwing it out there. He's 6'6". That a lot of tight ends are in that sort of range. If he added another 20 to 30 pounds, kind of bulked up like Kenyon Sadiq, could that be Oregon's tight end rotation next year? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. The thought has crossed my mind. Question came in here from Nick. 2-part question that I don't think you will want to touch. Excuse you for thinking I would not answer the big questions here on the show. Nick's a loyal everydayer out there, too. You should know me better, Nick. I'm being facetious, of course. Are the Ducks still over the scholarship limit? That's question 1. Assuming the Ducks are, do you have any thoughts on who may be the players that leave? So my understanding is, yes, they are still, I think, 2 or 3. Now, with DeCambra and Bowens both gone, that number might be less than 3. I do believe they are still like maybe 1 over the limit, but regardless of where they're at, I don't know the exact number. I do know that I am expecting there to be at least 1 more transfer portal departure from the secondary. So DeCambra is a guy who left a couple days ago, right before the spring game. Johnny Bowens, defensive lineman, did the same. I won't say who. It's not someone that is necessarily going to be on the 2 deep, or that we'd expect to be on the 2 deep this year, but I expect at least 1 more secondary departure from the team this year, because there are just so many guys in that secondary room. Like, think about this. Think about all the names that you saw on Saturday. You saw Cam Alexander, you saw Jabbar Muhammad out there. Jalil Florence is not here. Brandon Johnson isn't here yet. You saw Nico Reed. You saw Sione Laulea. You saw Aaron Flowers. You saw Kobe Savage. You saw all these new guys. Not everyone from the secondary is with the Ducks yet. So that's just too crowded of a room to not have at least 1 more departure. And like I said, I've heard that there's going to be 1 more. And I think that probably comes to fruition sometime on Tuesday. We'll see, because nothing is guaranteed. Guys can change their mind. Coaches can decide they want to keep a certain player around. But secondary. And then you can always look, I think, at offensive line and say, yeah, there's just a lot of bodies, just a lot of guys there that, could go find a home. Michael Wooten was a redshirt freshman coming into this year and decided to hit the transfer portal. Makes a lot of sense. A lot of good offensive linemen there for the Ducks, and plenty coming in as well. But I think that there will be at least 1 more departure. Won't be surprised if there's 2. I don't think you'll see 3 names hit the portal. And speaking of which, by the way, I'm going to get to this more on tomorrow's show, but I wanted to just touch on it a little bit today before we get to a big men's basketball transfer edition that I am so very excited about. Zachary Franklin, do you remember that name? Some of you might. He was a receiver at UTSA. Will Stein was his offensive coordinator. He had a great year. He was in the portal. He's back in the portal now. Do not expect Oregon to go after him at all, any way whatsoever. Way too many receivers in the room to go out and get a transfer. I don't know what the need would be, and I just saw his name flying around. Peyton Woodyard, the safety, that could make more sense. I could maybe see that. And, we'll see if they go after or continue pursuing Jacoby Matthews, the transfer from Texas A&M, or Derek Harmon, the defensive lineman for Michigan State. There is still more portal action for the Ducks that will take place. But at receiver, no. I think you could only have a departure. I don't think there will be any more entrants in really the entire pass catching room. I think wide receivers and tight ends and running backs, for that matter, I think it's all set. Men's basketball roster, one piece away from being fully set to being a good NCAA tournament team. You are one move away from checking out Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, Spencer. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get, everybody. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go always feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machine. There's always timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now, free on the Google Play or App Store. App Store, Google Play, available both. Game on. Go check out Monopoly Go. Sometimes I do wonder what off-season content will look like for a show that's 5 days a week. And then the off-season content produces itself. And you all ask great questions, which I appreciate. So, Dana Altman and company have added big-time addition here. And I'd be remiss if I did not note that Kelly Graves has also picked up a couple of notable transfer portal additions in the last couple of days. And as I told you, when his house went up for sale, and that was a story in the Oregonian, I was going, yeah, he's not going anywhere. Don't anticipate that to be the case. Yeah, we know that is not going to be the case. But for Oregon men's basketball and company, Raheem Moss, Ra'Heim, it's R-A''Heim. I would think it's Raheem, but I could be wrong. Moss is 6'4", 205 pounds, almost the exact same size as Jermaine Cousinard. First team All-Mac selection this past year at Toledo. And he's going into his fourth and final year of eligibility. He's played all 3 years with the Rockets, but averaged a career best 15.5 points per game this past season. Also 5.5 boards and 3 assists per game. 31% from beyond the arc. Maybe my favorite stat, 75% from the line. I can't stand Oregon's inability to make free throws, lest we forget that was what prevented them from beating Creighton in the round of 32. But I digress. This is a guy who popped this past year. He was an 8.5 point a game scorer over his first 2 years at Toledo. And then this past year, he upped the ante, 15.5 points per game. And that's a career best. And he has now parlayed that into what I fully anticipate to be a starting role with the Ducks. I think this guy is new Cousinard. This is what this feels like across the board. Plug and play, 1 year guy, got experience, shown his proven production. Not a great 3-point shooter, but capable and, brings good size. He's got solid athleticism. Love his float game. And what was Cousinard so very good at down the stretch for the Ducks? Float game. It was on fleek, as the kids say. I can't believe I just said that, but you know what? It happened. We can't go back. I could go back and edit it out, but I'm not going to do that. So I think that Moss is going to slide right into the starting lineup, and this will allow Des Lindsey, the junior college transfer, to come off the bench. Now, the thing with Moss is I would love for him to have a better percentage as a three-point shooter. If you can just be in the 34 to 35 range, everyone doesn't need to be a sharpshooter. But 31%, again, it's not terrible. It's just not great. He's got a little bit of a slow release on his three-point shot. I don't think that's where, he thrives the most. I think getting downhill, attacking the paint, utilizing the mid-range and the float game, I think is where he's at his best scoring the basketball here. But certainly, you just can't, as we saw a couple of seasons ago when Oregon missed the NCAA tournament, you just can't have too many non-shooters on the floor. And typically, Dana Altman's always got one at the center position. Now, if Nate Biddle's the starting center, then that changes the calculus a little bit. But still, your shooting guard should be able to hit threes, and he can. He does. I don't think it's what you would describe as what he does best, but it's certainly something that he can do. He's also got some nice athleticism, and hopefully that means he can bring it defensively. I'd be lying if I said that I watched any Toledo games this past year. I think I called. Oh no, that was a Kent State game. Never mind. So final year of eligibility. I like this move a lot. I think that right now, guys locked into the starting lineup next year are Jackson Shelstad, Raheem Moss, KJ Evans, and I think that's it. I do. I think that's it. My gut instinct says Bam Tracy is the other starter, at least at first. But my theory, which I will repeat from now until the end of, next year, is that Bam Tracy will begin the year as the starting three, and Mookie Cook comes off the bench. And then as Cook kind of gets acclimated, since he hasn't really played a lot of college basketball, he becomes the starting three by the end of the season, and you kind of play the hot hand down the stretch. Cook, probably a better defender. Tracy, better three-point shooter. So I think there are options there, and this Oregon team has now got depth. They have got size, athleticism, shooting. They are just missing one big. And that big could be N'Faly Dante. So for those who are not aware, Oregon is attempting to get a 6th year of eligibility for N'Faly Dante and essentially apply a retroactive redshirt to, I think, the 2018-19 season, one of his early years where he was ravaged by injuries, unfortunately. Now, that's happened several times in his career, but I think that if Oregon is able to get Dante back, my hopes, expectations will be sky high. I mean, Big Ten regular season title contender. I mean, top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. That is where the potential will be if Dante is back for this team. Now, if Dante is not granted that 6th year by the NCAA, then Cliff Amori from Rutgers would be my desired option in the transfer portal. He's fielding visits from all over the place, including North Carolina. I think he's scheduled to head there sometime this week, was the latest report. And, Oregon reportedly at least, made contact or offered him previously. So that would be a great move if Dante isn't given another year. But if you tell me the starting 5 next year is Jackson Shelstad, Raheem Moss, Bam Tracy, KJ Evans, and N'Faly Dante, 4 of those guys actually, were just starting on a team that should have been in the Sweet 16. And you are bringing in one of the most highly coveted, first-team All-MAC performing transfer portal guards in Raheem Moss. Then you have Keyshawn Bartholomew off the bench, Mookie Cook off the bench, Des Lindsey off the bench. Ibrahima Traore, the young freshman coming in, could at least provide some energy minutes, and then you have Nate Biddle to work into the fold as well. That is a deep team. I just pray I pray they'd be able to avoid injuries. And look, if you bring Dante back, maybe the team would be cursed again because, gosh, they have struggled to stay healthy over the last couple of years. But you bring back a first-team all-conference guy, an all-American caliber player, and N'Faly Dante, and Shelstad and Evans can make a sophomore year leap. And, man, with Moss in there and Tracy, that'd be awesome. Now, regardless, the Moss edition does make me more excited. I was excited when I saw Shelstad came back. I was excited that Evans came back, and Biddle and Tracy and all those guys. my excitement level ticked up a notch when I saw what Raheem Moss did this past year at Toledo. And if he's that sort of guy, I don't think he needs to be a 15-point-a-game scorer. If he's 10 to 13 points a game and, shoots it a little bit better from three, and he's the same sort of playmaker, like that's what's so Cousinard-esque about him. He rebounds pretty well. He's got solid size, but he's a playmaker. In college basketball, you really don't see too many guys that average over 4 assists a game. So for him to average 3 assists a game playing, the two guard position, or at least having the size to play the two guard position, I think is excellent. You watch his highlights, he's a really, really dynamic and heady passer. So that playmaking element that Cousinard also brought to the table, again, feels like you're replacing that about as well as you can, given the transfer portal options that Oregon had available. So you've got two guards that can create off the dribble. You've got shooters, athleticism, defense. It's all there. It's all there. And if they can avoid, the slow starts or the dumb losses, they won't have to win the conference tournament just to get into the big dance next year. And I know there's a lot of football news right now, but man, I tell you, this fires me up. This sort of move fires me up. I think we all loved watching Cousinard and Dante dominate over the last couple weeks of the season, and I think the program's got momentum right now. And if Dante comes back, that'd be huge. All right, a couple fun questions here to wrap up today's show from Bud. I love the fun personal questions, by the way. I'm always here for them. Having grown up in Lake Oswego, how'd you become a Ducks fan, and what's your favorite Oregon sports memory before you enrolled at Santa Clara? Second question, what sports program would you like to see return or be added to the Oregon athletic department? Ice hockey, gymnastics? I'd take gymnastics, honestly. Gymnastics is pretty cool. I've called that a lot at Southern Utah. They have a perennial top 25 gymnastics program nationally. So I'd pick that one. I don't, have a burning need or desire as a fan to see that added to the athletic department, but I think it'd be cool. So growing up in Lake Oswego, now some of you, my everydayers, longtime everydayers, are aware of this. My mom is a Husky. She went to Washington. My dad is a Duck. He went to Oregon. And so then as a kid, I was essentially presented with a choice. And that choice was, who do you want to root for? And well, I lived in Oregon, and so I grew up going to games at Autzen Stadium and at Matthew Knight Arena as well. So, I wasn't going to choose, as a kid, to be a fan of a team that was not in the state that I was in. My favorite memory, my favorite Oregon sports memory before I went to college. You know what? In 2011, Oregon-Stanford, I think it was college game day, and the Ducks won big at the Farm against Andrew Luck. There was a pick six from Rodney Stuckey, I think, late in the game. There was the 4th and 6 screen pass to D'Anthony Thomas. I was at that game, and we actually went down and made a whole weekend out of it in the Bay Area, and it was me, my brother, and 2 of our oldest friends. And that was like one of the funnest weekends ever. And we're still friends with those guys. I was at one's wedding last year, and I'm sure I'll be at one's wedding again in a couple of years, and or within a couple of years. But yeah, 2011, going to that game and seeing them pull out that win, like the whole weekend was so much fun. It was me, my parents, my brother, and then 2 of our closest friends who I grew up with, and that was awesome. So I like that question a lot. Let's end on that, shall we? Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.